Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at a truly dramatic shift in how elite soccer teams actually prepare for match day. I mean, if you've been following the sport for a while, you know the game has changed on the pitch. But how the world's best clubs train behind the scenes, that has completely transformed over the last couple of decades. So we're going to unpack the fascinating science and the core source material behind why soccer training methods literally changed forever.
To kick things off, let me ask you a question. Why did soccer players just stop running laps? Seriously, think back to the grueling, endless track running of past preseasons. The players would be forced to run up mountains or just do laps around the pitch until they were basically throwing up. It was brutal. But today, that kind of pure endurance running has practically vanished from top-tier soccer. Why on earth did the most physically demanding sport in the world suddenly decide to toss out the running shoes?
Okay, let's dive into this. In the past, conventional wisdom was all about isolated fitness. The old way meant running without a ball, doing these robotic, repetitive drills, and totally separating physical conditioning from actual gameplay. But the new way, which absolutely dominates the elite levels today, relies on something called tactical periodization. We're talking ball-integrated training and game-specific conditioning. It's a complete 180 from the old playbook.
Here's our game plan for today. 1. The old way. 2. The Portuguese Revolution. 3. What exactly is tactical periodization? 4. The game model. And finally, the modern training week.
Starting with Section 1, the old way, endless running.
To truly appreciate the modern game, we kind of have to establish just how flawed historical training really was. Welcome to the dark ages of preseason. For generations, players were basically trained like track athletes. The philosophy was super simple, right? Endless fitness work. Keep going until you feel sick, and then, go some more. As for the ball, forget about it. It was completely unheard of to get footballs out in the very first preseason session. The physical side of things was treated as a completely separate entity from tactical or technical skills. It was just this highly mechanical, reductionist view of the sport.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Portuguese Revolution and a totally new paradigm.
This massive paradigm shift didn't just happen by accident. It was sparked by brilliant minds who dared to challenge that whole status quo. And the origins of this revolution didn't even begin on a muddy pitch. They started inside the classrooms of Portugal. Professor Vítor Frade, over at the University of Porto, spent decades developing this revolutionary framework based on complex systems and neuroscience. But it was a student, a rebellious, visionary coach named José Mourinho, who took this academic theory and practically weaponized it. When Mourinho arrived in English football back in 2004, he brought the ball back to day one of preseason, completely shocking the establishment.
Former Chelsea captain John Terry actually summed up this exact shock and Mourinho's whole philosophy perfectly. He said, "You never see a pianist running around a piano, you see a pianist work on the piano." Man, what a brilliant quote. It hits the nail right on the head. You cannot separate the instrument, the ball, from the practice. Playing the game is exactly how you get fit for the game.
All right, Section 3. What is tactical periodization? The core theory.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes that old, flawed way of thinking. Back in the day, coaches used to view a soccer player's development as 4 totally separate equal dimensions: physical, psychological, technical, and tactical. It's like a chopped-up pie. They genuinely thought you could train fitness on Monday, technique on Tuesday, and tactics on Wednesday, and then, fingers crossed, the player would just magically put it all together on Saturday. They treated tactics as just one small, isolated piece of a fragmented puzzle.
But look at Frade's breakthrough over here on the right. He realized soccer isn't a fragmented puzzle at all. In his model, tactics are the sovradimensione, the overarching dimension. Tactics literally form an umbrella over everything else. The tactical idea dictates the physical, the technical, and the psychological demands. Sure, they're all trained simultaneously, but the tactical goal, that is always the thing driving the bus.
So, practically speaking, tactical periodization is a methodology where the tactical dimension guides the entire training process. It completely, 100% rejects physical training in isolation. Instead, every single drill, every single cue has to reproduce the logic of the team's specific playing style. Not just some generic, basic version of soccer. It integrates every single aspect of fitness and technique right into a highly realistic match situation.
Which brings us to Section 4, the game model, mapping the play. So if tactics are driving the bus, the game model is the GPS showing exactly where the team is going. Now, a lot of people get this twisted and confuse it with just a formation, like a standard 4-3-3. But it's so much deeper than that.
It is a detailed set of collective principles that strictly guides player decision-making. It essentially programs shared subconscious habits so that everyone on the pitch reacts to the chaos and unpredictability of a match with the exact same collective brain. That's exactly why the absolute best teams look like they are literally reading each other's minds out there. To actually build this game model, Tactical Periodization structures training around the 4 moments of the game. These are offensive organization, defensive organization, transition to attack, and transition to defense. The fundamental rule here? Every single training exercise on the pitch must involve at least one of these 4 continuous moments. You are literally never just kicking a ball around. You are always practicing a specific phase of actual gameplay.
And this brings up a really critical rule of the whole methodology: specificity. Training must exactly replicate the real demands of the game. It's not just about, matching the physical intensity. It's about replicating the specific decision-making, the rhythm, and the exact spaces on the pitch. The specific tactical idea you want to execute on the weekend has to completely drive the physical and technical development during the week.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a continuous feedback loop. As we can see in the cycle of the game model, it all starts with prior intention. That's the coach's grand plan. Then it becomes intention in action, what the players actually execute on the pitch during a training session or a real match. And finally, there's reflection, deeply analyzing what just happened to refine and tweak the model. It is a living, breathing system that constantly evolves based on exactly how the team is performing.
And finally, Section 5, the modern training week, scheduling success.
So how do elite clubs actually take all this heavy academic theory and schedule their week? Well, looking at this structured weekly microcycle, notice how there isn't a single day dedicated strictly to fitness. Everything revolves around Matchday, or MD. The day after a game, MD+1, is purely for recovery and reflection. Then, as we move toward the next game, the days logically build. MD-4 focuses on smaller sub-principles and positional structure. MD-3 tackles core principles with really high intensity and wider spaces. MD-2 dials in the strategy for that specific opponent. And MD-1, that's all about mental activation and clarity. Each day progressively layers tactical themes to ensure the team peaks exactly when it matters on match day.
This is absolutely the crucial takeaway here. Players achieve their peak physical condition inside the game. If a coach wants to develop anaerobic power, they don't line the guys up for wind sprints, they design a highly intense pressing session. If they want to develop aerobic endurance, they design a massive, long possession task. The players get incredibly fit, but with the ball at their feet, constantly making rapid-fire tactical decisions.
It's an entirely different way of looking at the sport, and honestly, it's exactly why modern football is so fast, synchronized, and beautifully tactical. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought here. Think about the football you watch every single weekend. Does your favorite team have a clear game model? Next time you watch them play, try to look past the basic possession stats or just how much they run. Look to see if they have a true clarity of idea in all 4 moments of the game. Because, as we've explored in this explainer today, the absolute best teams in the world don't chase fitness, they chase a collective identity.